What you're about to see is gonna melt your brain.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. There have been a couple new R-rated and hardcore Marvel projects that have been announced for the next couple of years, confirming a big theory that a lot of you had about the darker, more supernatural team-ups. So we'll break it all down and how Marvel is treating their new R-rated movies and shows, because previously they said Deadpool 3 was going to be rated R, but now it looks like there's a bunch of different types of mature projects they're going to make. And a lot of it has to do with the new Marvel Spotlight brand that they're introducing. Echo is going to be like the first big project that's part of that, like their R-rated projects. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. It's still really early days, but it does sound like they're doing this great big pivot at Marvel. Like, let's try really different stuff that isn't anything like we've done before, which is where this darker, more supernatural team-up stuff comes in. Also them doing just flat-out rated R stuff in general. That's one of the whole reasons why they created this new Marvel Spotlight brand, so that they could differentiate their more hardcore R-rated stuff. But the past few weeks, you might have seen people talking about the new Midnight Suns announcement. It looks like Marvel is finally developing a Midnight Suns team, and based on the roster of characters, it looks like it's going to be a movie, not a TV series. So it'll be rated R instead of mature. They're just different designations for that type of stuff, depending on which country you live in. So whatever they call rated R stuff in your country. Generally meant to be the more hardcore adult themed stuff. There are a couple of surprises on this announced first roster too, like this first version of the team. I knew they would do more supernatural teams in general. I think we all expected at some point, because we've been seeing those characters show up in new movies and series.
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
Originally, they had a plan to start doing that, the big supernatural team-ups in the new Mahershala Ali Blade movie. They kind of did one at the end of the Eternals movie, like that was meant to be a teaser for their first version of the new Blade movie. That was actually the first legit appearance of Mahershala Ali's Blade character inside the MCU just in general. Even though you only hear his voice, he asked Kit Harington's Black Knight character Dane Whitman, "Are you sure you're ready for that?" when he's about to touch the ebony blade. All because originally I think they planned to introduce more Black Knight stuff during that first Blade movie. But this is a couple of years ago. The Blade movie changed like a couple of times, and they just announced now that a new version of it is going to be much smaller with fewer team-up characters, but it will be rated R, more hardcore, which I think is good news.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
So a lot of their previous crossover plans have just shifted a lot, but in general, there's been a lot of chaos going on at Marvel, so no surprise that their plans have changed. It just sounds like they're holding off on their team up, making it like its own separate, much bigger thing, which I think is totally fine. Kind of like a darker spin on the Avengers, but with supernatural characters. You introduce a bunch of them in separate movies and shows, then you start to tease their crossovers and post-credit scenes, like this Mahershala Ali Blade post-credit scene with Black Knight in the Eternals movie. You start to tease how they're all connected through some overarching threat or villain, then you put them on their big team in this new movie.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Well, what are we avenging?
Whatever the hell we want.
Some of the characters that are supposed to be on this first version of the team they've already introduced, but some of the projects that are part of it have not happened yet. So we'll just go down the list of the characters that are supposed to be on this first version of the team and which movies and shows are supposed to be connected to it, at least right now. Some of them have not been announced yet. And this is meant to be completely separate from Avengers 5, Avengers 6, whatever happens with the mainline Avengers storyline or like the new X-Men movies that are coming up. It looks like the Midnight Suns team will be led by Mahershala Ali's Blade and Wong, of all people, which kind of surprised me to hear about. The idea of them teaming up sounds like it's going to start at the end of the new Blade movie, maybe in a post-credit scene. Like the actual Blade movie itself will be relatively small compared to what people thought it was going to be before, but it sounds like they're going to use it to start setting up the supernatural team. Maybe like a classic Iron Man 1 post-credit scene callback with Wong doing his best Nick Fury with the darker characters. We're putting together a team. They literally just did a more jokey parody on this concept with Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, putting together the Young Avengers, starting with Kate Bishop. Probably one of the next big surprises I saw on this initial roster was Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. I would not have expected them to put her on the team because she's rumored to be in so many big crossovers down the road. Then there's Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night. No surprise there. I don't know about Man-Thing because he did debut during the Werewolf by Night series. He is a supernatural character. There's a lot of supernatural related stuff going on. You have Elsa Bloodstone, also a big supernatural character. But Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night have been rumored for big supernatural team-ups for a long time. It sounds like Marvel just changed which teams they would be on and when they would come back. Originally, I believe they'd planned to put Kit Harington's Black Knight and Moon Knight in that first new Blade movie before the script changed a billion times. Now they're not supposed to be in that movie. There hasn't been a ton of talk about Ghost Rider other than they're going to introduce the character in the MCU at some point in the next couple of years. I haven't heard which movie that's going to be. They've been teasing the concept of the character in the last couple of really big supernatural related movies. There are a couple Easter eggs for Ghost Rider during Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but like the actual character did not appear in that movie. It sounds like we might get a version of one of the older Ghost Rider characters to return in Avengers Secret Wars, like some of the characters are coming back from the X-Men movies, and that's why they're waiting to introduce the new MCU version of Ghost Rider. We're already going to have a couple versions of Spider-Man active at the same time for a little while Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 are going on. They're even going to clown on this idea with Deadpool 3 too. Like, picture the Avengers Assemble scene in Avengers Endgame, but like a parody version with a bunch of variants of Deadpool doing it. Deadpool Corps Assemble, maximum effort. The rumored villains for this first Midnight Suns movie would either be Lilith or Mephisto. Mephisto is supposed to debut during the Ironheart series, and he's supposed to be played by Sacha Baron Cohen. Reportedly, he already filmed some scenes for that, but then they delayed the Ironheart series because they wanted it to take place alongside the Armor Wars movie, which they turned into a movie and then delayed it for a couple years. So Ironheart just kind of hit the shelf and is sitting there for a couple more years. Lilith was supposed to be in the new Blade movie. She might still be the main villain in that. Generally in the comics, Lilith's story is based on a lot of like biblical, mythological tales about the character, like she was the bride of Satan or Lucifer in some stories, or Mephisto in other stories. She rebelled against the MCU version of the one true God, like capital G God. He does exist in the Marvel Universe, but he's so OP, he kind of breaks any story that he's in, like, how come God let this happen? So generally that's why you don't see him actually showing up in a ton of stories. But like there's an MCU iteration of the Christian version of heaven in the backstory that you read about in the Bible, like the whole war between Lucifer and God, the rebellion in heaven. Lilith was cast down to hell with him, everyone else that rebelled. She's also meant to have been the very first human woman, the original wife of the biblical Adam who left him and went to Mephisto before Eve was created. So there are a couple of versions of her origin just based on which character is telling it in which comic book she's in. She shows up in a lot of Ghost Rider stories specifically, and as you would expect, Midnight Suns team-up stories, so it makes sense they would want to use her in the new Midnight Suns movie. In fact, she was actually the very first villain that the Midnight Suns faced when the team formed for the first time in the comics. It was basically the Midnight Suns coming together to fight Lilith and a bunch of her demonic children. Marvel hasn't said when the Midnight Suns movie would actually happen, but it wouldn't be till after all these connected movies and shows happen, maybe some of the other characters are introduced like Ghost Rider for instance, and some of the team members return to the MCU. Really good example is Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch.
That is she, the one who can save our queen.
More. She will save our world.
They just announced they're working on Moon Knight Season 2. That would also help set up Midnight Suns, and that's going to be a couple years away at least. The brand new Blade movie is still also a couple years away. Ironheart, like I said, delayed a couple years. It would take place right next to the Armor Wars movie. That's not happening for a while. Marvel Zombies is also supposed to be connected to this new Midnight Suns project, but is animated in a separate thing from the What If Marvel Zombies episode in Season 1. That's coming in 2025 at some point. Not really sure when during the year, but they'll probably release a trailer at some point soon. But Midnight Suns would be at least 3 to 4 years away, and that could change. But right now they're still trying to release the new version of Avengers 5 in 2026. Hopefully that doesn't get delayed again. I just did a couple videos about how they're changing Avengers 5 and what happened with Jonathan Majors, like how Marvel dealt with all that. I know there's tons of questions about other darker characters like Punisher, Doctor Strange. Punisher is going to be one of the main characters during Daredevil Born Again. There was also some language in the Echo trailer that sounds kind of like Punisher Easter eggs, so they might tease him during Echo 2. But let me know in the comments, who do you want to be on this first Midnight Suns team? Remember, the first Avengers team only really had 6 people on the roster, so it'd probably be a similar situation for Midnight Suns, like 6 people or less on the first roster. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. We're going to see Scarlet Witch come back in What If Season 2, Episode 8. My video for that will post tomorrow, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that. And click here to learn what happened to Jonathan Majors with Marvel behind the scenes. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next one.